Hey guys, this is Kamiken, and this is kind of a phenomenon I've noticed over time as a creator of webcomics and as a reader of various comics and webcomics over the years. Is that I don't think there's any nice way to put this, but most people's first comic idea, their manga idea, the one that they're most attached to, the one that they're trying to make into this big thing, should probably be canceled, Shonen Jump style. Where if they make a chapter one of it or a one shot and they're gearing up to make this entire big series out of this idea that they're making, that they're thinking about making, some editor, one in Shonen Jump, should take a look at it, read it like they do, like super fast, and tell the person right then and there that this idea won't work, or that they should retool it, or that they should rename it, or that they should do something to fix it and make it better. Because there's a lot of ideas that I see that people are deeply attached to, and they'll go on the same idea for years and years. And while their writing skills may improve and get better, because the start of the story is so rough and difficult to get through, everything that comes afterward is still attached to that beginning that loses most readers. Whereas if they had just taken the skills that they had developed learning over time and applied it to a new story, they would have much more success. And I think that the reason a lot of Shonen Jump stories succeed is because they are ruthless in cutting out or weeding out ideas that aren't as strong for a massive audience. Most creators' stories in the magazine are not their first story. They created a lot of other stories to begin with that had some potential, but they weren't simple enough for a reader base to attach themselves to, and for a strong, long-running story to expand from. It's actually really, really difficult to figure out how to make all of that work and to alchemize the right elements to put together to make something like that work. And it's almost like a lottery figuring that stuff out. But it just comes down to having the right characters, the right story elements, the right level of story writing ability, and then tapping into the writer's main skill in drawing or writing, and creating the right mixture of elements that allow that to shine. And that's not going to be found in your first work with all the lore elements behind it, all this heavy mental load that you're so attached to this character, you're so attached to how this scene is supposed to play out, you're so attached to how this story is supposed to go. Whereas in actual practice, it doesn't work. Like, the story in actual practice is weak, or it's not strong enough to actually spend as long as you might have spent on it, which is, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be a decade. But if you're Shonen Jump won't let anything like that happen. Like, they won't let a weak story go on for any longer than 19 chapters, which in their time is going to be 19 weeks. And you do the math on that. I'm not going to do the math. What is that, like 5 months? They're not going to let anything go on longer than necessary to try to gather a readership. If you don't figure it out by then, they completely dash your whole comic. You're going to have to come up with a whole bunch of new ideas and new characters that you're not as attached to, that you're not as enthusiastic about, that don't have as much of a heavy lore about them. But at the same time, your skills will have developed to the point where you realize, oh, Like, I was mistaken in the whole way I was approaching writing and drawing before. This is actually much better, and I'm able to create much more freely because I'm not as attached to the characters or the art or the story. I can just throw out ideas, and I'm not hung up on making the correct one or making a bad move. I can just put it out there because I'm not as attached. And so people who go through, the creators who go through the Shonen Jump meat grinder, who get their really great ideas destroyed or turned away or just canceled, have to come back with something new, and ultimately it'll be better. And if you're really serious about making a specific story, you can start with creating a better story first, the one that actually does get picked up for mainstream success. And then if you're really passionate about that earlier story, you can go back and do that with a better skill set, with a better understanding of what people like to see, what you personally want to see, and how to actually execute that without as many problems as before, without having that heavy mental load of all this backstory and stuff that you put in your work. Because this is something that I went through with my earlier comic, Air Rider. I made a pretty strong first chapter and showed it to readers. I spent I just put in as much as I could. In fact, Air Rider wasn't even the first comic that I started on. This one was supposed to be a practice comic because the earlier story that I wanted to do, a story called Gillen Seed or Venture Down, it had a couple different names, but that story was so much more complex that I was just like, yeah, I don't have the skill or talent to draw this. I need to do something easier first. And then that's when I came up with Air Rider, and then that turned into something that had all this lore and backstory and all this stuff. And by chapter 2, I had one of my writing group friends tell me, like, I didn't like chapter 2, point blank. Like, they just told me that point blank period, and I was just like, what? And I took their advice, and I took in their opinion, and I was just like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I could change that. I could do this. I could do that. Because a large part of the problem with the first or the second issue of Air Rider is that it still continued in the more high school part of the hero. Like, it's still a large part slice of life story that doesn't get to the hero stuff until issue 3, and I'm in the process of making it. So we get action in issue 1, but we don't get to the hero stuff until much later. And that was the issue with making Air Rider, which I just didn't understand the genre well enough to get right to the hero action stuff and give readers what they were looking for. I didn't understand about reader expectation back then, so I had to learn that. And now that I'm making my latest webcomic, Saintly, I'm understanding, okay, this is what horror readers are looking for, or this is what readers of this genre might be looking for, so I can deliver that much easier, knowing what specific tropes people are trying to see, and then developing my storytelling skills so that once that series is over, I can go back to Air Rider with a much more refined understanding of how story works and deliver that story even better than the first time. So this is not to discourage anybody who has a long running story that they're super attached to. If you're able to find success off of creating that, more power to you. Like, there's no problem with that at all. Like, there's no issues with that. but it can only be a little bit of an issue when the current bit of work you're making is still attached to a version that you made when you were much younger and much more amateur, to the point where you're not proud of it and you even want to redo some of those pieces. So in webcomics, it's a little bit more forgiving, actually a lot bit more forgiving, but with print books, it's a little bit more like, hey, this should be like professional from beginning to end. So if you would like to check out my second attempt at making a webcomic, check out Saintly. It is a demon chase horror action comedy about two best friends who have to outrun the demon loan sharks that they borrowed from. Basically, it's like Scooby-Doo meets K-pop demon hunters without the K-pop. And the story backs the main character into a corner where she has to decide between the hard path to success or lose her soul to the lure of easy money. And we get to see the ramifications of her choice, and if she can hide this deal with the devil from her friend, or if it will tear them apart. And I hope you read my comic in the description and check out the story. It should appear in your email inbox or your spam folder if you don't see it. And thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.